Hello and welcome. I am Kemuel Pascall and you are viewing One and One here on the WESN Content Capital. Over the years, Trinidad and Tobago has seen many police killings, with some sharing the view that the police should in fact kill those who they see, who they term to be involved in crime, and some saying that there is a target on the heads of young black men in Trinidad and Tobago. In this episode of One and One, we are speaking with the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, Mr. Keith Scotland. Mr. Scotland, hello and welcome to One and One.
Thank you very much for welcoming me.
Mr. Scotland, it's our pleasure to have you here. And well, you sit as the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, and of course, some of those killings have been within your constituency, even though you only came in August 2020, and
yes,
you would have had the opportunity to interact with some of those families of those men who would have been killed by police. As I mentioned, in some instances, there would have been police officers who have been charged, and in some instances, there would have also been issues where the police were justified in terms of killing the individuals based on the circumstance. What is the view that you get when you speak to people within your constituency and even outside of your constituency in relation to police killings?
The views vary because there are some constituents who hold the view that the police killings by and large are unjustifiable, not justified. But there are some who hold the view that the police sometimes act within their lawful duty during the course of their employment, and consequently the killings are justified. My view is that this is something that needs a greater analysis, a greater probing in order to get to the bottom of each and every killing.
So what you're essentially saying is that you are calling for a deeper dive into the circumstances involving police killings, not just in recent times, but over the years, because we have seen...
So that we can have empirical data, so that when we have the conversation, we have it with the empirical data.
Which is important because it would certainly make for some amount of context in relation to what we are speaking about. Now, if we look at what the statement that would have been made by the Emancipation Support Committee, in that they believe that police officers within the Port of Spain Division, because they specifically said the Port of Spain Division Task Force, have been killing young black males. What is your view on that particular statement?
No matter how the crime situation in the country seems outside of control of the police, no matter how street protests become fiery, no matter how citizens clamor for blood in retaliation to escalating gun violence, it does not allow those who are designated to uphold the law a free pass to act outside of the boundaries of the law, and particularly so in low-income communities. I will agree with that. I would extend the low-income communities to any community whatsoever in Trinidad and Tobago, because there's a mandate, and the mandate coming from the government is that the police are there to protect and serve and must always act within the parameters of their acting during the course of their duty, and any unlawful killings will be deemed a frolic of their own, and that is absolutely unacceptable.
But MP, on the part of the statement that you have read out, it spoke to low-income communities, and I think that's something that we should not even... Do you think that the Emancipation Support Committee was very speculative in terms of using that particular word, low-income, those particular words, low-income communities? Because as you mentioned in answering the question just now, that can be said about almost every area in Trinidad and Tobago. You have those people who are on the higher end and the people who are on the lower end.
I feel, and not at all talking for the Emancipation Support Committee, that they were focusing on a certain aspect of what they thought, because the headline read, Emancipation Committee urges police, stop hunting young black men. So it seems that they would have gotten their pool in the pool of young black men who the police, who they claim or they want the police to stop hunting. They would have picked that pool from the low-income areas.
And that's really what I'm taking issue with in terms of, as you mentioned, even answering your question. That's the question I was asking you before. Do you think that they would have been speculative in terms of saying in low-income communities? Because you don't just see police killings in Port of Spain or in Diego Martin or in areas where we have high crime, because it's essentially concentrated all over. However, you may see a higher concentration. If you look back at the statistics from over the years, you may see a higher concentration in police killings in those particular areas.
I think, in fairness to the Emancipation Support Committee, that was their foci. They looked throughout and they focused on these areas. So they're saying that these, if we do it analytically, they're saying that stop hunting young black men. Where do you ordinarily find young black men? They say they've come to the conclusion based on their statements. Well, in low-income communities, and they're saying stop hunting young black men, because in these low-income areas you would find young black men.
But MP Scotland, is that particular view, is that something that you yourself here, being the MP of one of the areas that would have been outlined basically, not directly but broadly in the Emancipation Support Committee statement, is that something that you hear often?
Well, it is something that I hear often. But let me be frank with you and let us have the conversation.
That's what we want to hear.
What about young black men killing young black men in these communities? Why haven't we had the conversation that addresses that issue? Well, I am raising it now because there is an issue and it's an issue that needs to be dealt with, of a certain type of internecine violence that is targeted. It has nothing to do with the police. It has to do with young black men in the communities killing young black men. These things have a spill-off effect, and it changes lives, and it breeds. I want to choose my words carefully. It breeds generational continuance of negativity. That is the phrase I want to use. My language is good enough so I can not say what I want to say. Generational continuance of negativity. Let me give you the example. About 3 weeks ago, a program was started by the Honorable Minister Shamfa Kujo, Sport and Community Development, where young men without skills were given an opportunity to train for 4 weeks, be paid. And after the training, having acquired a skill, after the 4 weeks, they got an opportunity not just to have a life skill, but to be gainfully employed. Yes? I personally went, along with my secretary. We got 6 young black men from the community of Clifton Towers by St. Paul Street. They signed up and they were supposed to start on the 22nd on about the 22nd of August. The weekend before they were supposed to start, there was a drive-by killing 6 a.m. the morning where they killed a gentleman from the community who, mind you, I met with 2 weeks ago when we staged a party for the young children, Spoon, and another. The other being the son of the councillors, a former councillor and member of my executive. And those 2 young men were killed. Mr. Moderator, the reaction of the 6 potential applicants was that they were unable to venture out of their homes in fear of reprisals and in mortal fear of their lives. What then happened was these 6 young black men missed an opportunity of a life chance to change their life narrative, to bring something positive into their generational life narrative, to put it forward to their children, their wives, because they'd have a skill, they'd be employed. What happened there? Why aren't we having the conversation that is going on now, where when I'm holding the elections, internal Port of Spain South constituency elections, that persons are afraid to come out? The same morning, they were closing down a camp at Mango Rose. Mango Rose is right before the bridge. I was scheduled to attend to address young black boys and girls. And because of what was happening, because of the gunshots, etc., we were advised by the police that it was not safe to venture into this area. What about that?
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
But in Scotland, people who are viewing will simply say, well, this is an issue of not just governance and a broader issue of crime. So how would you respond to that, being a government MP, though not a minister? That's the broader issue, that people are going to sit looking at us and say, but this man, most respectfully, this MP here sitting, he is an MP on the government side, and he's talking about crime when they are in power.
Look at the type of crime that we are talking about. This is a crime without any sense. So the only thing you can do with a crime without any sense is to plan for a senseless crime, because this is maybe some petty feud, something that is going on that causes persons to react that way. I can tell you, in answer to what you have just told me there, well, what is the reaction? That now, as you come around the bend, and when you leave, you can see, as you come around the bend by Piccadilly opposite the Greens, you would see that there's a police patrol there now. That there's a police patrol on St. Paul Street, and it even stopped. There was a football competition that brought down Beverly Hills to play St. Paul Street, to play the bottom baby behind the bridge, and all of that stopped. So in a way, it is linked to the government's commitment to good governance and protection. But in another way, it is linked also to personal responsibility and senseless killings. And it is my respectful view that you cannot hold a government wholly responsible for that.
Certainly not. That's not what we're proposing at all. We're not saying that the government is wholly responsible for crime, because crime is an issue that needs to be treated all around. Everyone has their part to play.
So then let us focus on the point I am making. What about that issue? Who is reaching out to these young black men? I have tried to tell them 3 words: live, live, live. Because there is no coming back on this fair after death. Who is to get that message across that the killings are senseless, that we need to value each other as human beings and value each other's lives? The killing, as I told you, those 2 killings, it affected us in a major way. One of the gentlemen who was killed was the son of a member of the constituency executive, which I had the honor of leading. We need to have the conversation of the root causes of that type of crime.
But MP, and I certainly agree with you, but again, people who are viewing right now would look at the conversation, look at this conversation, they will say, but this is a government MP. He has resources at his hand. He has the power to speak to ministers. He has the power to pick up his phone right now and call the Minister of National Security, call the Minister of Community Development, call the Minister of Education. They are probably asking, what are you doing as MP to have that particular conversation, to channel the resources within your constituency? You are at a prime constituency, and that of Port of Spain South, part of the capital city of Trinidad.
Maybe I started the conversation back to front and not front to back. Did I say earlier on that there was a program by the government, a program that would have taken persons? I will not use the phrase that you want to lure me into using. A program. It was a program of training for life skills for these young black men.
Yes, and you did say that, but you also asked rather the question of who is going into the communities, who is going to, and that's why I raised the point that you have resources at your hands.
But the point is, before it happened, I went into the communities as the member of parliament, and I spoke. That's how I got those 6 names. Now, if you follow me, without that senseless act that occurred, that would have been 6 persons, 6 young black men who would have gotten an opportunity to give themselves a life chance that they did not have before and that may not come in the near future. But because of that, because of what went on there, it has dissipated and it has not attracted itself to them. If you do criminology and theories of criminology, part of crime is linked to low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is linked to concepts such as literacy and illiteracy. These programs bring these things to these young black men where they can join in literacy program and get a skill which will thereafter improve their self-esteem. There is something called the empowered conversation that is going on. Same Minister Champa Kudjo with young men. Yes, and that is trying to bring the conversation to them. So it cannot be that the government has turned a blind eye or a deaf ear to this, but people have to access these programs, hold on to the programs, do the programs, get a life skill to improve their life chances. And that is why I'm saying that the government has not sat idly by.
But MP, on coming back to the issue of police killings now, and what is the view of many people that the police have targeted young black men in certain areas. Coming back to that particular issue, what do you think can be done to change that particular stereotype? I mean, it's not for you necessarily, but you do in fact have a part to play. But it's really for the commissioner, as the commissioner of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, to engage his men on the ground, his troops on the ground, to say, this is not what we're doing, and there are consequences for actions like this, as we have seen persons within recent times being charged for the killing in move of the 2 men or 3 men, is it? So what are you doing from your standpoint?
From my standpoint, we are encouraging young men to target these programs and to access them. We are also trying to create job activities and job opportunities, first in the short term and then in the medium term. And we are trying to bring that idea that the main thrust is to bring the idea that life is worth living and we value each other. And that is something these programs do that for these young black men. I want to extend the theory of the police killing of young black men, the alleged police killing of young black men, to the concept of young black men killing young black men in these communities and causing a chain reaction.
But MP, on the issue of police killings, why do you think that there's still a stigma in 2022 that people who are from constituencies like that you are from, Port of Spain South and places like Diego Martin West and Laventille East Mova and Laventille West, why do you think that there's still a stigma that those people are just involved in crime, and when probably in instances where the killings are unjustified, that there's still a stigma from people looking on the outside that those people deserve to be killed just based on the community they come from?
I cannot agree with any theory that posits that people deserve to be killed based on the area that they come from Point Commander to East Dry River to Beetham to move on Laventille. I think that life ought to be cherished, and I cannot subscribe to that view, respectfully.
No, I'm not saying that you should subscribe. What I'm saying is how do we, or what are some of the things that we can do in terms of changing the stigma? Because you as an MP, you would be aware that is the stigma. You are also a well, you are still an attorney at law, and you practice. So you would know that there are people who think that there's that particular stigma, or have that subscribe to that particular view.
That stigma represents, to some extent, scars of history. I say no more on that.
Scars of history, but
yes, I am, Mr. Moderator, I am not elaborating on that. Scars of history, whereby persons are stigmatized just based on the area that they would have come from. If you all can't distill that, well, I think I have said a very understandable phrase, scars of history.
No, it's not a matter of us being able to distill it, but it's a matter of how do we change those scars of history, because is that we're just going to continue? Are you suggesting that we continue with those scars simply because we're not willing to speak about it?
No, I am willing to speak about it, but I was being very euphemistic when I said scars of history, if you haven't realized, and more importantly, the things that are being done, the programs that are being espoused by the government even now. And before that, I think there are serious things to be learned. Look, Mr. Moderator, what you do not know, and I will share this with you. I was brought up at Union Road, 4 Roads, Diego Martin. My mother in the night and my grandmother at Cuthbert Circular in the day. And because of the parenting that I received on both sides. So when my mother is at work and my grandmother takes care of me, I had a certain parameters within which I would have to operate. And I cannot remember once in my existence, having lived in that area, that I was attracted to any activity that would bring shame upon them. That's one. And two, the scars of history was alleviated, they were assuaged, they were soiree, they were massaged in for me because of the parenting and the sense of worth that was drilled into me of my worth. And that is maybe a start in the home, and we must stop blaming governments. Where are the fathers in these communities? The mothers seem to be there and strong, but they can only do so much. If you have 5 children and you're on your own, what can be done? But there are programs, I'm saying now, that tend to deal with it. As a society, we need to have a conversation about these scars of history and why it is that, there's the stigma. You remember Chief Justice Bernard, he was from behind the bridge, and he got some flack for that, although he was a brilliant mind. And when I say brilliant, I mean he's up there with all the other jurists, with De Labastide, with Wooding. He's up there. And I think that we need to have that conversation. We need to show very living examples so that people can see that there's an alternative to the life, and that persons who are judging, when you go for a job and someone looks at your resume and sees where you are from, and because of where you are from, you are blacklisted. That is wrong. You cannot blame that on the government, can you? You cannot blame that on the government. So it is that opportunity to converse and turn back the scars of history, and I'm making sure I say the scars of history and not what I want to say, that will try to assist the country in beating back stigmatization of young black men or stigmatization of anyone in our country.
And I think you're absolutely correct, because I think there is that conversation that needs to be had, because it cannot be that every time we have a police killing or someone from a community like Beetham or Sealuts or Laventille, they go for an interview that they are turned back or they are told, well, that's where you're from, or something like that.
You understand? And that is unfair, because here's the social contract we had with them. You go to school and learn, you will get an opportunity. So these young men go to school, young ladies go to school, and they learned and they got what they were supposed to get, their qualifications. But because of where they came from, they are kept out of meaningful employment and meaningful jobs. That cannot be right. Which
is the sad state of affairs here in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's certainly something that we need to talk about, because it cannot be something that we're shying away from or we're turning a blind eye to, because if left to continue and fester, it will certainly bring forth things that we will not like to see in the years to come.
Well, sir, look at our history. I want people to read the books of Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, Inward Hunger. Read the books of C.L.R. James, beyond a boundary. Read the books of Earl Lovelace, The Schoolmaster and Salt, and it tends to address those issues. It addresses them in a real way. C.L.R. James said that it was the mark of a young black man reaching if he could bring someone at the dinner table who was of a lighter hue than him. These are the things we need to read. We need to educate ourselves. Eric Williams had a drive, and he was the first member for Port of Spain South. He had a drive called Inward Hunger. I would want to tell all young black men, develop that inward hunger and let it feed your appetite for positivity and positiveness. The government has programs. Minister Shamfa Kudjo, the Prime Minister, they are working, Mr. Fitzgerald Hines, to provide programs for you to take yourself out. Now, in all fairness, I must say that there are corporate citizens who have stepped up to the plate, and they are very, I can tell you that they're very involved in these communities, and I liaise with them, and I'm very pleased about the reaction that I've gotten, and we will start to deepen those ties in order to widen our reach for young black men.
Well, certainly, MP Scotland, I do hope that some of those programs that the government has been rolling out over the last couple of months and over the last couple of years do reach to those who most need it, and that we can certainly continue this conversation about the police killings and the targets and stigma that is associated with persons who come from communities which are termed as hotspots or communities which are termed as depressed communities.
We certainly can. I promised you half an hour and I gave you 45 minutes.
Yes. Thank you so very much, MP.
Can go on, and all we need to do, because it took about 2 weeks to have this meeting, we need to do it with a little more timeliness, and I think that we can continue, and I'm willing to continue this discussion.
Yes, we will. Thank you so very much. Well, this has been One and One here on the WESN Content Capital. I am Kemuel Pascall. Thank you so very much for joining us.